Chair now recognizes Ms. Randall for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am so blessed to come from a district where salmon are an integral part of our environment, our culture, our economy in Washington's 6th District. We have recreation and sports fishers. We have environmentalists that see salmon for our canary in the coal mine, and 12 federally recognized tribes with usual and accustomed territory that overlaps with the 6th Congressional District, many of whom, as we have heard from our speakers today, depend on salmon for the key role that they play in not just subsistence, but culture and our greater ecosystem. I feel very lucky to have worked alongside tribal leaders for the last 7 years in my public service life, because tribes are more often than not leading the conservation efforts with fewer resources, funding, and staff than you need to do the work. In Washington, our co-management approach often means that while you are co-managing with the state, you are carrying the lion's share of the science and the work on the ground. Chairman Choke, in your testimony, you reiterated Nisqually's reserved but not received right to fish at your usual and accustomed places. Of course, to meet these treaty-protected fishing rights, there have to be salmon to fish. I know that you have made financial investments from Nisqually, large financial investments, as well as time to recover salmon. I was with one of your fishery scientists just last week at the Puget Sound Partnership Recovery Caucus meeting. And in your testimony, you mentioned that the tribe has restored more than 900 acres of Nisqually estuary, among the largest projects on the West Coast. The tribe has done very impressive work, and it's time for the federal government to hold up our end of the bargain. Chairman, I wonder if you could tell us more about the main challenges that you see facing salmon populations and what Congress can do and should do to ensure that our treaty obligations are being met.
Thank you for that question. It's a good thing to note here that what we're talking about is continuing efforts, working together as tribal leaders, as governmental leaders, at all three levels, the federal, the state, and the tribal. We continue these efforts and work together and look at the alternatives of, how we can, like I stated, it's not our mission to initially eliminate the pinnipede issue. It's how can we manage it in a sense that it's more feasible to everybody. I mean, there's other alternatives, and I think as long as we continue to work together, we can all make this happen. So, again, thank you for that question.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I just have to take a moment to say I really look forward to the unveiling of Washington State's new statue in Statuary Hall, which will honor Billy Frank Jr., one of the co-founders of the National Indian Fisheries Commission, but also a leader, Nisqually tribal member, and a leader of the fishing wars that have gone so far to uphold tribal treaty rights in Washington. Mr. Johnstone, thank you so much for being here today. It's always good to see you. I represent a unique place, including, the Quinault Nation, and, our land is not the same as everyone's. Not everyone has a chance to experience the special place that we live, and I hope that more members of the committee will. We recently went to Alaska, and I got to see some of their salmon habitat challenges. In the remaining time, I wonder if you could tell us more about the holistic approach to salmon recovery one that includes hatchery management, harvest regulation, hydropower impacts, habitat restoration, that tribes have been leading.
Yeah, thank you. Can you just repeat that? My hearing's not as good as it should be.
The previous question was about the holistic approach, and the holistic approach that you lead from the Fisheries Commission side also includes hatchery management and harvest regulation, hydropower impacts, habitat restoration. Can you say more about the vast needs of that holistic approach?
Well, I can, if I understand the question right. We, as an organization, we have 20 commissioners from those 20 tribes, and we're well engaged in the habitat discussion. We do serve a function in the hatchery world, mostly through we took over Fish and Wildlife's fish health long ago. We work with the hatcheries on the health of the stocks, but in the arena that we're in, we have an environmental section, and we have populated a committee, environmental policy committee. So everything is scrubbed through those subcommittees, and we work on all those issues, including we have a client scientist that helped us get ready for everybody wrote their adaptation plans and things like that. All of those supported by Congress. So it's key that, and we have strong support out of the House Interior, Environment, and related agencies. Across the aisle, we've had real strong support since the days of Congressman Norm Dix, and we have and Congressman Tom Cole and others that have really championed and are behind the agreements that we signed with the United States and the responsibility that goes along with that to work together to accomplish. We are the partners in the solution to a lot of these answers that we seek. We're fully engaged on all levels. Everything that we do through our organization and what we've populated that comes through there are key and important to the tribes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnstone, and thanks for your generosity, Madam Chair.
I'm now going to recognize myself for 5 minutes. Thank you, Ms. DeCoteau, Mr. Johnstone, and Chairman Koch for describing for us the importance of the fisheries and the salmon population to your cultures and the treaty obligations. I think that's really helpful for us as we're looking at this, that it's not just a scientific question or a question of biology. That's been really helpful for me today. Now I feel like maybe I shouldn't have told you I don't really like to eat fish. That was, I don't think I come from water people. I think my people are people of wind and dust. So I eat cows and I've never developed a taste for fish, but I do like to catch them. And so, Mr. Phillips, I want to ask you, we talked earlier in the first panel about the restrictions on commercial fishing because of the pressures on these fisheries. Could you talk a little bit about what the regulations are on sport fishing because of the regulation of the fisheries?
Yeah, thank you for the question. You really can't separate them. We have policy where we share between recreational and recreational and commercial fisheries. We obviously have a process for sharing between non-tribal and tribal fishers. But the reality is that our resources have been diminished to the point of constraining all fisheries. If you look at the number of days on the water where we've been open in recent years, it's a fraction of what we've had not that many decades ago. And those challenges are continuing. We have, as you heard, many stocks listed under the Endangered Species Act. The complexity of management is such that one stock is going to constrain fisheries across the coast. And that stock can be one that's very low abundance, so opportunities associated with making sure that we get enough of that stock back to that individual river constrained fisheries up and down the coast. And it has had a significant negative impact on coastal communities, tribal communities, and we're hopeful that this approach and this strategy to address at least the marine mammal predation part of this can provide us some options moving forward.
Thank you. And that brings me back to a question I asked our first panelist. I'm just going to give all of you a chance to answer really quickly, starting with you, Ms. DeCoteau. Can you see any reason why we shouldn't expand the authorities from the Columbia River Basin and lift the requirement that we prove that an individual pinniped is a bad actor before we allow control of the predators?
These are tough conversations to have. We acknowledge that. But in all, from all points of view, I think that the Marine Mammal Protection Act worked in the Northwest relative to pinnipeds. And, we don't have predation on marine mammals, pinnipeds. For the most part, the natural predators have been removed. And so you heard Mr. Rauch talk earlier about upwards of 250,000 California sea lions off our coast in our rivers. We need a tool. We need a tool to be able to address that portion of this challenge. No doubt we need to continue to work in the other areas where we know that habitat restoration and mitigation for lost for hydropower and other challenges will continue to exist. But this, from our lens, is something that we need to address now, and we think it has a real opportunity to provide a meaningful outcome to improve conditions for salmon and also everyone who relies on them.
Thank you. I agree. And Ms. DeCoteau, in your testimony, you talked about having tools on the shelf, but you felt like you couldn't reasonably use them. Do you want to address that as well?
Yes, thank you for the question. Regarding the amendment to answer yes, we specifically around the tools, that question is great because we need to expand the geographic scope of the MMPA to allow for area-based management, and this will address some of the issues that I talked about in my testimony around the Bonneville Dam issue and that bottleneck opposed to the Willamette River. And what this would do is it would get us quicker and more comprehensive responses to any emerging predation issues. So as we talked about, there's a lot of learned behavior. The hope is that we disrupt that learned behavior so that it doesn't continue. So just simply removing these animals will not do that. We need other opportunities and possibilities potentially that NOAA can provide in terms of a roadmap to address and look at.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnstone, Chairman Choke, is there anything you want to quickly add in the next 10 seconds?
Thank you for the question. I think it's just our commitment to work through this process, be diligent, collaborate, find those pathways. That's what our message would be out of the Northwest Indian Fish Commission and the 20-member tribes. Important that ability to the other member tribes of our organization, in my opinion, have as their vital testimony, their story be heard. We're a vehicle, as the Northwest Indian Fish Commission, develop those policies, and I can speak to them. But the voices of those 20-member tribes are what drive us to do the work, and that's a loud voice. That's our time immemorial voice.
Thank you.
And we need to be inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Ms. Gluesenkamp-Perez for 5 minutes.
Thank you to the chairwoman. Chairman Choke, in your testimony, you mentioned the need for Congress to streamline Section 120 process to allow managers to remove pinnipeds by means not limited to chemical euthanasia. Could you provide some examples or strategies other than traps and chemical euthanasia that you believe would be more effective in removing or deterring sea lions?
Thank you for that question. Initially, it's something that we need to continue to take a look at and see how we can evaluate the situation and, as I stated earlier, come up with less lethal means, I guess you could say. I've always stressed the point, how can we actually, resolve the issue with our pinnipeds and the harbor seals? One of the things we need to take in consideration is the simple fact that, in Alaska, they do harvest such animals. So can we work together with our brothers and sisters up north to do what we've done in traditional ways and barter with our brothers and sisters up north, and and their salmon abundance up there. But initially, it's collaboration, working with Chairman Johnstone and our state and federal partners to come up with a resolution to that. So, thank you for that question.
Thank you for that response. Mr. Phillips, I'm curious to hear just some brainstorming. I've been chewing on this for a while and hearing a lot from my community about this. And I'm curious to hear what you might think about a permit auction process or a lottery, some kind of guide, some process where local fishermen and tribal members could bid on permits to assist with lethal removals. I've had so many people tell me they would pay good money. And with funds coming far short in our rural schools, another revenue source, and a broader tie to the community that this is a bigger part of our life than just eating. What are your thoughts? I understand there are a lot of points to flesh out here, but I wanted to bring it up in a possible step in the right direction.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one, but I'm sure there were folks would line up to participate in that. I think we need to be creative. I think we need to find tools to address the challenge. I also think that we need to be really careful, make sure we're investing in good science to monitor the outcomes of any type of programs that we implement or decide to implement. And that clearly is going to be the foundation of how we move forward. But, I would certainly support being creative and coming up with unique ideas to.
We got unique ideas over here.
I still can't even harvest an elk, so I probably wouldn't be very good at it. But.
With the remaining time we have, Ms. DeCoteau, DeCoteau, excuse me. I appreciate you being here to speak directly on the complex challenges to mitigating issues with the Bonneville Dam. But I'd like to hear more about your perspective on expanding Section 120F permits to the tributaries and how this might help deter sea lions more effectively.
Yes, thank you for the question. Absolutely. I think what we see on top of the bottlenecks is these confluence of animals around tributaries coming into the main stem of the Columbia River. So I think the more we can, again, this is learned behavior, the more we can disrupt this learned behavior earlier near the estuary and coming into the Columbia River, that will prevent them from coming all the way into the lower river and into Bonneville Dam.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I heard is this is learned behavior, and you have to without any clear feedback loop here, being direct and being, I think, respectful and communicating, not with, as Mr. Johnstone was saying, they don't read the laws, but to communicate more clearly. So thank you for your insight. Thank you for your work, and I'll yield back my remaining 11 seconds.
The chair now recognizes Mr. LaMalfa for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to point out something I noticed in Ms. Glusenkamp's poster earlier there, that seal contrasted with a, what's that, a Toyota whatever? Okay. a more accurate description would be a 427 Shelby Cobra, similar in weight and length, so that might make a more interesting poster next time too. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate the conversation here. Thank you for our panelists for your time and travel on this. And Ms. DeCoteau, I said that correctly?
DeCoteau.
One more time?
DeCoteau.
Okay, I did hear her say that. All right, I'm just trying to say it French, I guess. So, all right, good. Thank you. What we've seen, again, in the Willamette is that a dramatic drop in the steelhead extinction from 89 to 11% is the stat I have because of the targeted sea lion removal. And I got nothing against the sea lion per se, but, obviously we have a big problem here. And so in the time we've had so far today, do you care to elaborate more on how more of this approach could be brought across the whole, much more of this whole corridor from really USA and North America as well? How much more can we be applying this? Do you have more thoughts on how this could help the populations up and down more of the coast?
Yes, thank you for the question. The problem is you can't have a blanket approach for an entire system or even the West Coast. There's so many, again, the geographic footprint and the landscape of each of these rivers and tributaries are vastly different from each other. And so you really need targeted approaches for each tributary and in the main stem, it's really just enormous in terms of the amount of water coming through, all of the, it's a series of reservoirs. It's not a free-flowing river anymore. And so you have this opportunity for these sea lions to be there. And so there's just more space for them to haul out, and they just don't get trapped as much as they do. So again, some of our recommendations are for Congress to look to our good partner, NOAA, to see if there's strategies or options or offer a roadmap that we can consider moving forward. And then similarly, to work with other agencies. We've heard that the Army Corps has been doing some work in the Midwest around addressing invasive species at locks and dams. And so how can we take, issues or problems or solutions in other areas and potentially apply them to ours?
Yeah, that makes good sense. We have an issue on the Klamath there where initiative to put more barriers on the irrigation systems there for fish screening has been lagging, and so we have farmers and ranchers getting into more hot water over inadvertent takes of a very low amount of endangered fish, and yet we have this problem here of mass amounts being taken by sea lions or even outside of our international water jurisdiction by just mass amounts of fishing. So I wish we could do more to have a better rapport with agriculture on the very, very limited amount of risk ag causes versus the greater risk elsewhere. And part of that, as I mentioned in the Klamath, is hastening the process of getting more fish screens in place on the intakes they have on the Klamath for those districts. So do you have any thoughts on what changes we should be making to the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which would give tribes more opportunity to balance the mammal populations, or pinnipeds? That's the word of the day. I'm with you on that one. That's a new one to me. To balance that population with the great effort on the salmon restoration. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, thank you for the question. We, again, in my recommendations or my testimony, we support amending the MMPA really to extend this area-based management authority, not just to the Willamette River, but all the way up the Puget Sound, the West Coast, because what we see is, these animals aren't stagnant. They're coming into their system, but they don't stay there. They go back to the West Coast, up and down the West Coast. And so the larger area we can manage for, the better we'll have success.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. I still like that word pinnipeds. I'm going to have to
It's kind of
commit
fun.
that. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And sounds like some good ideas there. And the chair now recognizes Mr. Baumgartner for 5 minutes of questions.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to wave onto the committee to speak today, and to you, our panel of experts, for coming and testifying on this important subject. I represent a significant portion of Washington State, and one that includes some of the largest fish-bearing streams in the nation, including parts of the Columbia River and the Snake River. And I know how important salmon, steelhead, and other fish populations are to our ecosystem, the health of our communities, and to the cultural heritage of our tribes. And I also appreciate the work of the Upper Columbia Basin tribes in eastern Washington, including the Colville, Spokane, and Kalispell tribes, and for leading the way in reintroducing salmon north of the Grand Coulee Dam. Now, I am not a tribal member, but I did have the great privilege when I was a boy of spending 2 years playing basketball with a group of Nez Perce Indians in Lapway, which was close to my boyhood home. And so twice a week I would drive down to Lapway. And my father was a forestry professor that did a lot of forestry work on tribal areas. And I've been at salmon fish bakes with the Nez Perce, and I know how important it is to tribes. It's important to everybody, particularly the tribes. And I believe that one of the biggest areas of opportunity to collaborate across party lines is to get serious about controlling our sea lion populations. These guys are a problem. These mammals are one of the biggest impediments to fish restoration on the West Coast. The average sea lion can eat up to 35 pounds of fish a day. They are a danger to West Coast fisheries and eat hundreds of thousands of our salmon, steelhead, and other fish every year. And I think one of the reasons that people get so frustrated with government is that everybody knows the sea lions are a problem. There's too many of them, and they need to be removed and reduced in populations. And everybody asks, what is taking so long? Salmon are so important to our region, and these sea lions are a discrete challenge that we can reduce. And it's nothing against the sea lions. Salmon are tasty. If I was out there, I'd eat them as well, too. But we have to give folks the tools to reduce these populations. Originally protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, sea lions have expanded precipitously along the West Coast for the last 50 years, with the total populations estimated to have grown from 100,000 in the 1970s up to 300,000 along the West Coast today. In 2018, Congress enacted the Endangered Salmon Predation Act to remove some of these seals. However, as of May 2025, stakeholders eligible under law have removed a total of 229 sea lions from our rivers and estuaries. Again, there are too damn many sea lions eating too many fish. They need to be reduced. We need to have the tools. And as somebody that knows the taxpayers of Washington State and the taxpayers of America are spending a ton of money to try to help salmon populations, it's extremely frustrating to me that folks do not have the tools to need to do what they're doing. And so I thank the committee for this important hearing. I thank this important group of people coming today. And I hope next year I will be able to come back and there will have the tools. And no offense to these guys, but a good number of them need to be killed and removed. And I hope that happens. And what we do today leads to having the tools to do that. We need less sea lions and more salmon. And with that, I yield back. Thank you for allowing me to participate, Madam Chair.
Thank you for coming to participate and giving us the line of the day. I want to thank all the witnesses for being here, for your valuable testimony, as well as for the members who participated and worked to bring more attention to this extremely important matter. The members of the committee may have some additional questions for the witnesses, and we will ask you to respond to those in writing. Under Committee Rule 3, members of the committee must submit questions to the subcommittee clerk by 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, December 8th. The hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for your responses. Without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.